Never knew much about Vosh. It's okay. Don't worry about it. He does what I do, but like I just do it better though. So let's talk about it. Has anybody heard of this little small company? It's called what's its name again? Amazon. Has anybody heard of Amazon in chat recently? You ever heard about that? It's pretty underground. Some people haven't heard about it, probably. But little did you know, they're pretty big. They're a pretty big company. You know, they got a lot of money. They got a lot of influence. Some people call it even the most successful company in the world, which is wild to me. You know, wild stuff. Sounds familiar? Yeah, you may have like heard it in passing. Yeah, something along those lines. So Amazon employs a lot of people, and those people, they have work at their store. Simple capitalist meme. You work for Amazon, they give you some amount of money. That's typically how that works. So a little while ago, to wrap around a little bit, a couple days ago, there was a tornado. There was a goddamn twister, as some people may say, a cyclone even, how some people may word it. There was a tornado. Now, I was streaming when that tornado happened, so I wasn't necessarily sure what's going on. I heard sirens outside of my door, and I didn't know if that was like the air raid, like tornado sirens that typically go off or what, because once again, we're in the middle of December. I wasn't expecting to be a tornado in December, but there was. Yeah, like some people were watching and I was like, I think I heard sirens, and so I looked it up and I didn't see anything. I like typed in tornado and there were no like articles written about it at the time, but that was like the instant they started using the sirens. So I thought nothing was happening. Unfortunately, for some people who are in a different part of the state than me, in states adjacent to where I am, since I am in Kentucky, weren't so fortunate enough to kind of not understand that there was a tornado coming, because some people knew all too well that there was a tornado coming, mostly because it was right on top of them. Now, why are we talking about Amazon? The reason we're talking about Amazon is because during that tornado, lots of people were like, I think there's a tornado coming. And Amazon, their warehouse, was like, we don't care. So what happened was that Amazon workers at this plant in Edwardsville, Illinois, which isn't too far from the border here, the plant that they were working in got hit by a tornado. And there was a partial collapse of the entire building. And 6 people so far have been reported dead who've been there. But the big problem isn't simply that they were working and they got hit. The bigger problem here is that they were forced to keep working and they got hit. Let's talk about it a little bit.
This meme is very real.
You're right, Marjorie, and I really wish it wasn't. 6 dead in Edwardsville, Illinois after Amazon warehouse collapse. At least 6 people are dead and more injured after the partial collapse of the Amazon warehouse in Edwardsville, Illinois on the night of December 10th. As of the morning of December 12th, search and recovery efforts are ongoing through the rubble of the facility, expected to continue through the 14th. At least 1 person was evacuated by helicopter the night of the collapse. Reports indicate that as many as 100 workers may have been inside the DLI-4 facility when it was struck by an EF3 tornado, which is a pretty big tornado. Tornadoes go up to F5. Is that right? So F3 that's not a tiny twister. That's a big boy right there. That's a big tornado that was ripping through. At 5 p.m., the National Weather Service had issued a tornado watch for portions of Illinois, Missouri, including Edwardsville, which sits at least 30 miles from the Missouri River from St. Louis. About 8 p.m., there was an upgrade for the tornado warning for the area, meaning that there was an active tornado that had been observed. So Amazon is a big company, okay? Amazon employs 15,000 people in Illinois alone at the moment. So they're not like short on resources as it comes to moving people around, but they decided not to care about any of that. Amidst the rapid growth, Amazon has also become notorious for its lax safety standards and punishing work conditions. So here's the thing. We all know that Amazon is bad, right? But it's one thing to say, Amazon bad, Amazon bad. It's another thing to put numbers to how bad Amazon actually is. For every 100 Amazon workers, they report almost 6 injuries. 6 injuries per 100. That's a lot. And to tell how much it is, it's actually 80% higher than the warehouse industry in total. 80% higher than in any other like member of the industry and the industry as a whole. So they are terrible, okay, when it comes to their workers' treatment. It's 6% per 100 workers, which is insane. That's huge. That's almost 10%. That's closing in on 10% of workers who get injured. This is not like a mistake. This is simply what Amazon does. They put profits over safety, as they spell it out for us here. They cared more about making money than they do about keeping their people safe. And obviously people suffer from it, especially these people who were forced to stay in their warehouse, who weren't able to leave. They weren't let go. And if you just walk off of a job, you can expect to get fired. So these people were like asking, hey, you know, can we possibly leave? They said no. Are we going to be let out? They said no. And as they were like cowering in the factory that they were forced to stay in, as it got hit by a tornado, people lost their lives because they weren't able to evacuate and go home. Because Amazon decided that them pushing a couple more boxes in the time that it takes to get out of the facility was more important than making sure that all of them were safe to go home and be with their families at that time. So yeah, it was so bad even that like Washington State made an entire department specifically just for watching Amazon because its employees got so fucked up so much. They had to make an entire new department of the government specifically to overwatch Amazon because of how poorly it was treating its workers. If this doesn't tell you how terrible they are as a company, I don't know what will. The big problem is this is not isolated specifically to Amazon. It's not. There are a lot of other companies out there who feel the same exact way. Amazon did not invent callous disregard for health and human safety of their workers. They did not. They're just like one of the biggest proponents. They're just one of the biggest contributors to it. But they did not invent it. Oh, no. Because here in the great state, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, actually, there are other companies who felt the same way. Because it wasn't just Illinois and Missouri who got hit by a tornado. Remember, it was us too here in Kentucky, and Bowling Green was a big place that got hit during the tornadoes. And there was another place, another warehouse that alleged same things, but actually a little bit worse. Let's talk about here. Factory workers threatened with firing if they left before a tornado, employees said. So 8 people in this Mayfield candle factory died because they allegedly weren't allowed to leave the factory when a tornado was on the way. A factory? Okay, nice. Okay, buddy, nice lefty misinfo. Amazon is a warehouse. You leftists are basically as bad as the far right. Thank you for the Destiny impression, Prasadas John. I appreciate it. Are tornadoes normal in Kentucky? They're reasonably normal. We're in like Tornado Alley, if I remember correctly. Let me see. Completely uncommon, but tornadoes are, they're not like incredibly uncommon, but yeah, we're sitting in like a place where we get like pretty normal amount of. This is where a lot of tornadoes tend to happen, like in this area right here, like Midwest. Where we were hit was Western Kentucky, so Western KY, like about here, and all this little like panhandle here of Kentucky is typically that gets hit the most. In the tri-state area here of Illinois, Missouri, and Kentucky is the place that gets hit a lot. And Edwardsville is like in this area, and Bowling Green is like in this area. So this is the place that gets hit with tornadoes the most. Obviously not as bad as these little shitters down here, but yeah, we're not in the place where you don't get hit with tornadoes. I'll tell you that much. Tornadoes aren't like, people aren't surprised when tornadoes happen in Kentucky. Just like the time and the severity is what surprises people, but tornadoes aren't like uncommon here. We get some nasty twisters. These things are scary as hell. Do you guys think about this every now and again? How like spooky tornadoes are, just like in and of themselves. Just like you'll be vibing and out of nowhere, like this shit will just start like happening. Like a big old storm cloud will just start spinning and it'll touch the ground and just start eating shit. Like this is like the closest thing to like demon spawn that I could possibly imagine. Okay, a little death funnel, and when I hear funnel, I typically like I'm pogging because that may have something to do with like funnel cakes. You know what I mean? But like this is not cool. This is not cute. This is horrifying. The fact that the planet can do shit like this. This is crazy. It's crazy. Look at this. This one's got a goddamn lean to it. My man's leaning. Like Henny got him leaning. You know what I mean? This is wild. So. Back on task. Back on task. Okay, back on task. Let's talk about here in Kentucky. Now, we got hit with a tornado too. And so the people, especially in Western KY, who experienced most of it, I'm not in Western Kentucky, but I still got a tornado warning in my area. Like I said, I got hit with the buzz beep. We got a national broadcast stuff on us, but thankfully I'm okay. But there's some other people who weren't as lucky. To give a little visual representation of how bad the tornado was here in Kentucky, someone took a picture of what a John Deere factory looked like after a tornado came through. So if you take a look at here's a John Deere tractor in a John Deere factory after the tornado came by, after they came back to assess the damage. If you take a look at that's corn. That's a knob of corn. That's a head of corn that got sent through the window of a tractor during the tornado. Yeah, here it is. Here's it from the back. You can see it from the back. Here it is. Whole ass, hard ass corn. Almost like destroyed an entire tractor. Just a single piece of corn. So this is what we're talking about, okay? These are the type of weather conditions we're talking about that happened here in Kentucky, okay? So on that note, knowing this, understanding this, all right, let's talk about what happened here in Kentucky. So here, there was a factory where the people in Mayfield, which is not too far from Bowling Green, the people of Mayfield were in a factory and were worried about their well-being and were asking their managers if it was okay for them to leave. And apparently, allegedly, the employees said after the 8 people at their factory died, their candle factory, they said that the managers told them if they tried to leave, they'd be fired. If they stopped working, they'd be fired. So they had to now worry about whether or not they'd be able to keep their job or get hit by a tornado. So they had to be put in the position, keep your job or keep your life. And for the people who didn't know what was going to happen and who didn't leave, it seems like the position that the company put them in made them at the end of the day lose their lives. At least 8 people weren't able to make it out of the factory. Yeah, die now or die later is the choice that they gave them. Once again, allegedly, as reported by NBC News. Yeah, Ayn Rand drooling and cooming over this. Holy crap. Here, we'll get to that. Catastrophic tornado approached this city on Friday. Employees of a candle factory, which would later be destroyed, heard the warning sirens and warned to leave the building. But at least 5 workers said supervisors warned employees that they would be fired if they left early from their shifts. As word from the coming storm spread, as many as 15 workers beseeched managers to let them take shelter in their own homes, only to have their requests rebuffed, the worker said. Fearing for their safety, some left during their shifts, regardless of the repercussions. At least 8 people died in the Mayfield Consumer Products Factory, which makes scented candles. Scented candles above human life. As you can see, normal things happening, and that added to our total, as Governor Beshear said, of 74 people who died that day while the tornado ripped through the state. Michaela Emery, 21, said in an interview from her hospital bed that workers asked to leave shortly after the tornado sirens sounded outside the factory at 5:30. Employees congregated in bathrooms and inside of hallways, but the real tornado wouldn't arrive for several more hours. After employees decided that the immediate danger had passed, several began asking to go home. The worker said people had questioned if they could leave or go home, Emery said. Some people who preferred their overtime and to stay and work to make the extra money, overtime pay was available, but it wasn't clear whether those who stayed were offered additional pay. Supervisors and team leaders told employees that leaving would jeopardize their jobs, some employees said. If you leave, you're more likely to be fired, Emery said she was told by some of her managers, or overheard her managers talking. About 15 people asked to go home during the night shift shortly before the first emergency alarm sounded outside the factory. There was 3 or 4 window hour between the first and second emergency alarms when the workers would have been allowed to go home, she said. So here, it's not like this happened just like out of nowhere and they were just instantly hit by the tornado and they just nothing could happen. For hours, 4 hours, People were asking to go home. Workers were like cowering in bathrooms and in hallways to stay away from windows. Because remember that corn that got sent through a tractor window. These tornadoes down here are no jokes. They're no memes. They're no memes. All right. They're no memes. Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Oh yeah, like 100%. Like the terrible working conditions and no care for workers' well-being. Profits are put over all of that. To the point where now people's lives have been lost, all for pushing some more boxes for candles to be done in the factory. Just a couple more hours of work is not worth letting all these people go home. Now the company has denied that they told people that they couldn't go home, but the fact that all of those people stayed there and that there are so many employees coming out and saying that they were told that they couldn't go home, honestly, I find it very unlikely, the fact that they really did tell them that they could go home no matter what. I don't think that's true. I will tell you, it sounds like a lie to me. Now, once again, this is all alleged. It's all alleged. The company denies the allegations. So take it as you will, but they said that they deny it. But me personally, from my, unknowing position, my non-judge, I don't have all of the details in front of me. I got to tell you, the likelihood of all of those people staying there where they knew they could leave when a tornado is coming, I find it a little suspect that they didn't actually tell people that they would be in danger of losing their jobs if they decided to go home right before their factory got hit by a tornado. I will tell you that. I will tell you that. I asked to leave. They told me I'd be fired. Another employee said, even with the weather like this, you're still going to fire me? He asked. Yes, the manager responded. As Johnson said, the managers did. This is absolutely untrue. Bob Ferguson, a spokesman for the Mayfield Consumer Products, said, we have a policy in place since COVID began. Employees can leave anytime they want to leave and come back the next day. The idea that you can just dip, the idea that these people can just leave without any repercussions, no matter what, I find that very suspect. Oh, anybody can just walk out of the factory no matter what? Okay, I'm sorry. That could be possible. I'm just telling you, the likelihood of that happening for me is very low. That no matter what, there's nothing that you have to pull up. You can just moonwalk out of the factory whenever you want and come back the next day. I find that unlikely, especially with all of these employees coming out to say that that is not the case. So, and there are more people saying that they asked to leave and they said that they'd be fired. You can't leave. You can't leave. You have to stay here. Condor said a manager told her the situation was bad. Everyone was uncomfortable. Mark Saxton, 37, a forklift operator. We love our forklift drivers, don't we, boys? Said that he would have preferred to leave, but that wasn't an option that was given to him. This is just like another picture of the scene of what happened here in Kentucky. Bad memes. There's so many homes that got destroyed. 74 people lost their lives, and these people who could have stayed safe in their homes or in another shelter were not allowed, allegedly, to be given that opportunity, and who had to sit and work and died in place instead of spending that very difficult time with their family instead. So this is what we're dealing with right now, okay? So when we talk about workers' rights, when we talk about how workers are treated, and when we base our politics around how people spend a vast majority of their adult years and even waking hours, I will tell you this, or at the very least productive waking hours. I will tell you this. We do not live in the days where workers' issues, workers' rights, and worker safety is no longer a real threat. Like those days where oil barons and tycoons and CEOs would sacrifice anything, sacrifice any person working under them for the smallest amount of money, throw as many lives into the furnace as it takes to be able to craft another dollar for themselves. We're not living in a world where that is just a fairy tale that doesn't live in just history books anymore. It's not like those days anymore. That's today is where we live. Today. And this is only the stories that we've heard of so far. How many other smaller businesses, how many other people had to be put through the same thing, or feared the same thing, or left their work anyways, even though they were told that they had to stay, or weren't given the option to leave? How many people had to go through that, got up one day forced to work for a company that they didn't give a shit about and who didn't pay them an adequate wage, only for them to die there, trying to just keep their lights on and stay and keep a roof over their head? How terrible is that? Like what a voluntary, remember this, okay? Remember this when conservatives sit there and tell you that the system that we live in is so incredibly voluntary. Remember that. Remember this story. Remember these names, these people who had to be forced to work like this to keep a roof over their head. Were given the option die now or die later when it comes to their place of employment. Remember that, because it's not. This is not a real choice that these people were given. They were forced into it, and unfortunately they lost their lives because of it. Or their lives were put in immediate and needless danger because of managers or supervisors or CEO told them that leaving would lead to their immediate termination. And if something bad didn't happen and they got terminated because of that, they were in a whole new place of hurt, which would be now looking for another job after you've been laid off from yours for doing something as simple as caring for your own personal well-being and not wanting to be hit by a goddamn twister. Maybe that's just me, but that sounds incredibly cruel. But Shark, every place of work has a nuclear rated bunker. It costs a business nothing to have a hardened place for employees could shelter for free. There's even snacks. Yes, we love the snacks. It's pizza time. Pizza time. Do not riot. It's pizza time. My goodness. Oh, and here's like to make sure that we all understand what happened. Here's a look at what the factory looked like. Here's a little look at what the factory looked like after it got hit by a tornado. So this is the before image and this is the after image, bro. This looks like the after image of someone who's been doing crack for 30 years, man. Like, what the fuck? This is what they were told they couldn't leave from. Just so you understand, this is what they were told they couldn't leave from. 2 of their main buildings like razed to the ground. Normal twisters here, isn't that right, boys? No, you cannot leave. Yes, you will lose your life. We are a factory.